must be our plan.
Unity.
Good evening. Welcome to Donkey Talk. We have an exceptionally passionate, knowledgeable, intelligent young man with us here tonight, and that is Jeremy Everett. Thanks for being on the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. He works with immigrants, and we'll get into all that, but the first thing that I'd like to do is touch on your journey of what brought you to where you are now, as far as like your childhood and how you were raised.
Yeah. So I'm Waterloo native, although I graduated from high school just in Waverly, but Waterloo has always been my home. We were not exceptionally wealthy by any means. As a matter of fact, my mom was single, raising 3 toddlers on her own. So that's kind of really where I found the importance of community and the importance of sacrifice and kind of coming together as a team. And since then, that's kind of brought me all the way to where I'm at today. So I guess that's kind of where my passion was born, is knowing that people like my mom are out there who are saying, if you've got 2 coats and your neighbor's got none, one of those coats is going. And
that's really neat. Was she politically involved at all?
She is never politically involved, but she has the heart of an angel, so she kind of guides me that way.
Isn't that nice? Well, you want to talk about your degrees from college?
Yeah. So I went to Hawkeye, transferred to UNI, got my bachelor's in political science, and I loved politics, I loved the policy, I loved meeting people and just knocking on the door and saying, hey, how you doing? What's important to you, and how can I help? But over the years, I really just wanted to do more. I wanted to be more in depth and not just listen to what problems there are, but to help solve them. And so then I decided to go back and get my master's in social work. So now I'm a licensed master social worker, still very involved in the policy aspect of things.
So why don't we touch on your feelings about the refugees and how all that came about? Because you have this tattoo here.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was really neat. You want to show the people that?
Yeah.
And tell them.
It might be a little hard to see, but this is the bird of the Chin people, which is an ethnic group from Burma. This is the emblem of the Karenni people, another ethnic group from Burma. And then the kind of rising sun look here is from the Karen people. And then combined, it all kind of represents with the stars and the stripes as America, which is, to me, the essence of what it means to be an American, is to be not just welcoming and accepting, but to be proud of the diversity that we have.
That's awesome.
So right here it says, I speak a little bit of Burmese, but right here it says, thank you. Instead of welcome or anything like that, it says thank you, because I am very grateful to have such a strong, passionate, and hardworking group of people in our community.
Oh, that's awesome. I bet they love you too. You care about them. So what are some of the things that you do with the Burmese?
Yeah, so I started off by just teaching English at a church, and then one day after another, they kept saying, well, how do we do this? How do we turn the heat on? So for example, in the refugee camps in Thailand, there's no air conditioning, there's no technology. So when they come to Iowa and all of a sudden it's 30 degrees or negative 30 degrees, how to turn the heat on.
So what would be the most important thing that you would want the public to know about the immigrants and how we can integrate more with them?
My message, I guess, to anybody listening would be simply, we are all human in this respect, that we all need food, shelter, love, caring. This city is so much stronger because of our immigrant and refugee populations. Not just our schools, and not just our businesses, but we as people. Their culture has provided us with a new sense of giving, a new sense of sacrifice, similar to my experience when I was a child, of you have one thing, but the other person doesn't, and we split it in 2 and we share. When folks go through the trauma of just picking up their life and moving to another country, that in and of itself warps the mind. It's traumatic.
And they don't know the language.
They don't know the language. They don't know the bus system, electricity, plumbing, and this is all brand new. And not only do they learn these systems, but the kids, they learn biology and English at the same time, and they graduate at the same rate. So they put in their work. And so to assume that they are freeloading or any of these other negative stereotypes, those are simply false. And I would encourage anybody to come to the 1 p.m. Karenni church service that I go to. I don't speak a lick of that language, but you can feel it in the air. You can feel it in the community, the sense of community that's there. And that's
The warmth.
right. And that's one thing that I think they contribute to our society that I think has been lacking.
What's a kindness and a compassion?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the more technology and the more we become technical, the more separate we've become.
Right. And there's a distance between people. But when you go to the community from Burma, even going into a house, you know, they'll put out strawberries and some other, you know, some traditional Burmese food or what have you, and say, okay, thank you. And like we eat first. And it's not because of anything other than the fact that they're grateful and there's gratitude there. And study after study shows that gratitude is one of the strongest emotions for a happy life. And so despite the numerous traumas they go through, they're some of the happiest people I've ever met.
With the least amount.
Right.
Yeah. What was the statistic? I heard a statistic where it's like if the happiest people make 80,000 or under a year.
Yeah. And those are also the same people who contribute most to nonprofits and to charity.
Oh yeah.
And it is, again, it's that sense of giving, it's that sense of sacrifice. Where, I mean, there's a reason I haven't formed an organization, because part of me, I've thought about it, sure, but part of me doesn't want to ruin the
purity of it.
purity of it, exactly.
I understand that. That's really neat. So you have down here about employers who are refugee.
Absolutely.
So give me some examples of that.
So we think of refugees as people who are, or refugees and immigrants as people who are, picking vegetables or what have you. We see this on newsreels, we see this on movies and TV, pop culture.
Workers.
Right. But in reality, we already, in Waterloo itself, we already have at least 5 or 6 refugee-owned businesses, and then we include the immigrant population as well, and we're talking a major source of income, tax revenue, and employment for these community members. There's 3 grocery stores from the Asian community that I go to, simply because no other store has it. And they bring, and these stores, it's friendly, there's no pressure to, I mean, just even shopping is a different experience because it's lighthearted and it's fun.
Well, it probably doesn't have the rush.
Right, it's not,
that
it's a social, every
we fall
interaction.
into.
Yeah, yeah.
We do. You know, because the more you have, the more responsibility, the more work it takes. So then you're stretching.
Right, and there's always, in American culture, there's always a sense of no matter what goal we hit, there's got to be another one. But that kind of eradicates our sense of serenity, our sense of peace.
Oneness.
Yes, and so when I see the community members and I go there, I buy this wonderful tea that they have, and then
Oh, tell them about that tea. What's it called?
yeah, it's called Thai tea. It's an orange can about this big. It is absolutely amazing. It's I can't even describe it. It's sugary and delicious, and doesn't have caffeine, which is something that I need to start dropping. But I go in and I buy the can of Thai tea, and I see a young man who I've worked with his family before, and so again, I just write down my contact information, give it to him, and say, whatever you need. And so he sells me the can, and now I'm going to be helping him with his essays.
He's in school.
At UNI, yep. And that's another thing that we kind of think that refugee and immigrant populations are just working. That's all they do. When in reality, we have, I don't even know how many go into Hawkeye and UNI. I mean, and again, I want to stress this, not only are they learning the language, but they are also learning biology, the sciences. They're learning.
And working full time.
Absolutely.
So they're like triple whammying it.
Right. And so, of course, when you have all of this piled on, again, that kind of affects the mental health of anybody. That would make sense for anybody to seek that
It's a
help.
lot of pressure.
But access to those services is kind of limited. Perceptions are kind of skewed. And so that's one thing that I like to do is let them know, not only am I here to help you with your homework or work or what have you, but let's talk about how you're doing.
Well, I see something else you talk about down here, economic anxiety myth to Trump.
Yes.
Explain that.
So there's this idea that people are anti-immigrant, anti-refugee, just anti-anybody new, xenophobia. And a lot of people, a lot of talking heads say that it's economic anxiety. That's why they voted for Trump. And this economic anxiety is leading to xenophobia.
Xenophobia, okay, explain that. I've never heard that word before.
Xenophobia being fear of newcomers, fear of...
So it's actually about immigrants.
Right, right. And we've seen, there's a history, obviously in the United States, of xenophobia, where the same way we are persecuting folks from Central America, we were doing to Italians, to Irish, but over the decades, over the centuries, we have now become normal. I'm German and I'm Irish, but I'm not being persecuted. In fact, people who are German and Irish, whose ancestors experienced great discrimination, are now the perpetrators of that discrimination. And we need to kind of take a step back and realize this moment that we're living in now traps us a little bit. It takes away our perspective of the overall experience to be an American. I am absolutely proud to be an American, but that pride is not in our current situation. It's not in our current ideals. That pride of being an American comes from the possibilities of change. And to see that our country right now is treating these immigrants and refugees as less than, as subhuman, as criminals, as rapists, as drug mules. I think our president even said that they are animals.
And how did these people feel about President Trump? Did they voiced any opinions?
Yes. It's different in their culture because of their experiences. And again, I say this as a white man who's never been in their shoes and never will.
Right.
It is impossible for me to truly understand their experience. But as somebody who's worked with them for 5 years in the most heart-wrenching situations, there's a 70-year-old woman I worked with who she wanted to vote. She wanted to become a citizen. And that is, hands down, becoming a citizen of the United States is the proudest moment in most of their lives that I've ever seen. And it's not just because of a sense of pride and belonging. Instead, it's a sense of safety.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
There are a lot of people. So when President Trump was elected, within 2 weeks of his election, I got 20 requests for citizenship applications because they were afraid of deportation, to send back to the camps where, again, sometimes death awaits. And taking all that work for 5 years to come to the United States, become a citizen, and to have that torn from you.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about where they came from and what the environment was before they came here.
Acts of genocide, acts of crimes against humanity. By definition, folks, to be a refugee, they have to have experienced such horrors and such traumas and such great fear that they had to pick up and leave. And sometimes they didn't have pickup, they just had to leave. Some stories are truly terrible where one family, they're agricultural family, so they're harvesting. The husband takes the harvest to a bigger city to sell, right? He doesn't come back for a couple days, and that worries the family. So they're really nervous. And all of a sudden he comes back without his cart, without anything, and say, we gotta go now. And they leave that moment. And later that evening, soldiers came in, burnt everything, everything to the ground, took all of their money, all of their land, and shot anybody who resisted. And that's happening even to this day. It's been happening for 67 years now.
And we haven't done much to help out, huh?
Not the United States, no Western powers have. China is taking advantage of the community from Burma.
How?
Well, the community from Burma is one of the most diverse countries in the world. They have 65 different ethnic groups.
Okay.
And a lot of them, there's some infighting and some massive history of colonials taking, like England, taking advantage of them, just like they did in India and
Right.
And they just picked up and left after World War II, and that left all of this power and money and military might just up for grabs. And so the majority party, the Burmese, took advantage of that and started persecuting the different minority groups, taking their land, taking their country, breaking promises, breaking treaties. And to this day, there are murders in the streets, there are fighting in the jungles, and a vast majority of people, vast majority, have to stumble through night and day, through the most landmine-riddled land in the world.
So what part is this government playing in this?
They, in 2012, they had their first democratic election. 2014, it looked a little bit more optimistic. But the problem is that in their country, according to their constitution, the government, which is a dictatorship really, has control over the borders, the military. Basically, they have all the weapons. And so true democratic reform has to come from a change in their constitution and a change in that, unfortunately, we're seeing today the Rohingya population being massacred, literally massacred. And
you're kind of describing what's going on with our country right now, borders, and
well,
that's kind of frightening, isn't it?
the thing is it snowballs, and we think, oh, president's just calling folks animals, it's not big of a deal. And then we have propaganda. There's 10 steps to genocide. And I guarantee people from Germany did not understand that until step 10, which is denial, which is denying the fact that this stuff happened. And I'm seeing, and the world is seeing, the United States take such an opposite approach to our ideals. Not just hope and optimism and hard work can get you through the day, but the fact that home of the free and the brave, there's no bravery in calling a man carrying his child to the border over 4,000 miles and then taking them apart and then never seeing each other again.
No, it's just
There's
terrible.
no bravery in that. There's no freedom in that. It's cowardice, in my opinion, because you're afraid to address the problem head on.
And where is our House and our Senate? I mean, why are we allowing this? I see this man getting by with so much, and he's not supposed to do it. He's actually breaking laws, political laws.
Well, and that's the thing, is a lot of Trump supporters who you see on social media and you see even in person, especially at those rallies, where I study this. I study the rallies, and especially towards the immigration and xenophobic points of view, where a lot of, and you see this in polling too, where the supporters say, yes, he's a crass man and he's dishonest, and I don't trust him, and I don't like his attitude, but I love his policies. And there's folks saying, comparing folks at the border and newcomers and refugees as raccoons that need to get out of the garage, and Trump is the one doing that. So they'd rather have a crass man get the raccoons out of the garage than have the raccoons in the garage in the first place.
Yeah, what's happened to humanity?
What I think has happened is we isolate ourselves to what's familiar, because, again, it takes bravery to knock on someone's door and say, Minglaba, Januname Jeremy, Neme Bulukodele. There's Burmese for hello. My name's Jeremy. What's your name? Mm-hmm. It's hard for people to take advantage of those situations. We've isolated ourselves in a way that we create our own bubbles.
Well, not only that, the general population, middle class, has to work so hard just to make it. And now the women's out of the home, not or man, whichever. Both parents are out of the home. I mean, and so you're just everybody's on this treadmill of survival.
Exactly.
It's almost like it's been planned out.
Well, and there's historic precedent to illustrate that the United States, especially the ruling elite, have consistently pinned lower class groups against one each other. Working class families are a lot more dangerous united than they are divided. So why not say they're different, and then take a step back and just fuel the flames of that division? When in reality, I can promise you, whoever's watching this, if you spent one day, one afternoon with me, with a meal from a family from Burma, you would feel so much shame for the raccoon comment or for any other kind of xenophobic comment, because you would realize there is so much more in common with us than what separates us.
We're supposed to be the heartland. It's supposed to be about heart. Yep, well, it's an interesting journey we're on.
Yeah.
So how are they dealing with this? I mean, they're just trying to get their citizenship so that...
Citizenship is a sense of safety. I've been working with the community since 2014. I've helped with the elections since then. I've been in the voting booth. I've taken people to the polls. I am nonpartisan when it comes to their decisions, when it comes to information they receive. I was with them, with individuals from the community from Burma, when they voted for Trump, despite the fact that I was a precinct captain for Hillary. My opinions don't matter. I trust them. It's their vote. I don't influence it whatsoever.
It.
Absolutely. But I can tell you that probably 60% voted for Trump. The strongman personality, the defense, but that's just it. The rhetoric was believed. But today, I tell you today, they didn't know the difference between, didn't know the difference between Republican, Democrat.
Educated, uneducated.
Right. But today, we say Democrat, they cheer. I say Republican, and there's a sense of disgust. Because when a political party, supports an individual so highly, holds them on a pedestal, literally, and then the person on that pedestal demeans every single day the very existence of these people,
I know.
they are voting Democrat, but the problem is they might not know how. And not just voting for Democrats, but the very process of how do you get registered, how do you vote absentee, how do you find your polling place, how do you fill in the bubbles,
So that's what you're helping with?
Absolutely.
That's why you got to get on my affirmative action. You're going to come, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome, because I can see you are kind of a guy that's a take charge, make it happen person. I love it. It's what we need.
Well, if you can make change, then you have the responsibility to.
Exactly.
So.
And if you can help others, you should help others. That's what it's all about. The strong help the weaker. So, well, we're coming to the end of the show, and we're going to keep going here. We're having another show with Jeremy, and he's going to be talking about voting for Trump and Hillary, and the history behind it, and the racism and the safety, school and workplace discrimination. So that show will be coming up. This will run for 2 weeks. So thank you, Jeremy, for being on the show, and watch the next one. Do you have anything you want to say?
Thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you take the opportunity to come on out to any of the events that are happening this summer with the refugee and immigrant community.
Well, where are they going to be? Real quick.
Karenni National Day, which is the biggest event for the Karenni population in the United States. People are coming from all over the country, including people from all over the world, to Waterloo to celebrate the Karenni culture. Food, dancing, soccer.
Real quick.
June 21st and
write this
22nd.
June 21st. Where at?
It will be the soccer complex, and then as well as right downtown in the Five Southern Brothers Center. And there will be a lot more information to come.
Oh,
But
that's awesome. So they have a website they can go to real quick?
it's in development.
Okay.
It's in development, but you will definitely see us around.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
this together. Unity must be our plan.
Unity must be our stand.
Rebirthing new thoughts, questioning our wants,
Spreading